semester
Yeah,
or
but
class,
yeah, for the
but
people
in the
who are
holidays we'll
online,
just
I'm so
sit with
sorry.
it and make it better and make it portfolio ready. And that process has helped me. My everyday
Yeah,
project has
and
also
yeah,
helped me
I think
prototype.
in
Hi, I'm Suraj Barthy. This has changed a lot in the last 1 year as I've been identifying differently and understanding what it means. It's a artist from Chennai, artist from Bangalore, artist from India, New York based artist from India, a lot of different things. But this is more a strategic uh, sentence when I'm applying for jobs here because that's how they look at it. And if it's New York based, they're like, okay, we can hire him for New York based things. Um, it's my site, and I was just looking at it earlier to see what all I've done this year, and a bunch of it hasn't been updated, but I'll start this anyway. So I think something that I so I know most of the people I think on the call through different uh, ways and different places. I know Mathura because we met at a conference and she put me on this whole wheel of going to ITP. And I'm here. I graduated last year and I continued as a resident. And I know Joe from NID and other people from NID and a lot of them from creative coding in India. I'm sorry if I'm speaking in a monotone. I'm just not awake yet. Um, so something that's very integral to my identity is my everyday project. I've been doing art every day for the last 8 years. It was 3105 days, and it's mostly cinema 4D, but it fluctuates sometimes. Since say in the last 1 or 2 years, if I'm working on a project, I try to work on it every day and post something about that. And it's like a journal to me. And when I see it, I know what's happened in my life at that point. To be happy, sad, could be any emotion. And sometimes I do live code stuff, and that forms part of the end of the day. And as I was completing my residency at ITP, all of us have to do a residence show. And this could be something related to what you have been doing the last 1 year, or it could be related to something we did over the last 3 years, or something completely new. And I usually try to use all my chances to make something new. So I think it came from NID. Uh, at every project, we'll try to make something new, and it won't be polished, it won't be finished by the end of that semester or that class. But in the holidays, we'll just sit with it and make it better and make it portfolio ready. And that process has helped me. And my everyday project has also helped me prototype faster and think of it in that way. Think of the final outcome when I start doing something. So at ITP, for every class, every small project would be new. Whether it's good or not is a different question, but I'll try to put the first brick towards building a new project, and then build it into a full-fledged portfolio piece later. So for this resident show, something that I wanted to do for a long time was print out all my everydays, the 8 years of work, into one sheet of paper. And we also have a big display in the gallery that we showed it in. So I took some of the videos. This is like 10% of the videos I have made over the years, and put them all into one large video and put it on the screen. And my mom was visiting, so she's here. And the final rolled out piece was like this. Maybe that's a better. So in this piece, this was near the entrance. This was the display in which that video was playing, and then people walk in and they see this. This was the render that I made the day before the show. So this is all 8 years, and whatever's unrolled is actually 3 years worth of renders. The rest is inside this roll. And I had some of the videos playing on the screens here too, and a write up about this. The point of this for me was one, to see my whole life in one physical artifact, at least my last 8 years living in one physical artifact. And putting it like this, I've met different people and had different experiences, been in different places over the last 8 years. And I could clearly see what happened when, and I would look at a render and I'll know exactly what happened that day. And the point of it not being completely unrolled and some of it hidden is also that there's more than meets the eye. And this being in New York is only a part of my life. And I think my New York experience started somewhere at this point in this role. And then a little before that was a pandemic, this part of the role. And then 3 years or 4 years before that, fully inside this, which only people close to me can access. That was the idea. And in this, I could also see patterns of things that I had done. Like, because it's been a really long project, most of it has been trying to learn one technique or one button in the software and seeing what it does and making that evolve into my process. So at this point, I was making a watch. And then this is every year Inktober, which is like a sketching style. But my goal with Inktober has always been using the same 3D software, Cinema 4D. How can I make a sketch feel that looks real? And when I put it like this, I could see that it was slightly successful. When I look at it as a day-wise thing and on the phone looking at it as your Instagram feed, it doesn't really convey what it is. And when looking at it as a physical object, it really gave a sense of improvement and progress. And the whole process of this was, I have all my files organized. Also, can you give me a time check at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. I have all my files organized and tagged, and I use emojis every day in the caption, and I have an Excel sheet for all that. But I didn't want to go through all that and look at all my sources and download. So I wrote a bunch of different scripts, one to download all the files, then the other to well, it's a good thing. I can't find it now. So
it's a wonder
I
if
download
you
all.
find anything actually. How do you do your file management?
It's actually pretty clear, but for me, but I guess I'm not awake enough to find everything now.
Understand.
This is all the things I apply to and all the residency stuff. But so the idea was writing a script to download all the things, and then when downloading from Instagram, it gives you all the file names in UTC, and so it will give the file names, date, and the time. That will be the format. But the problem was I was in India some days, and I was in New York some days. I was in transit some days. So they'll sometimes 2 or 3 posts will count as the same day because they're all in Universal Standard Time. And I had to go through and again write scripts to figure out. I didn't write scripts. I figured out when I was in which place, and then I had to write scripts to convert all the UTC time to that specific regional time, and then backwards number all of them from the last day to the first day. And then I realized I had been misnumbering them at some point, from some point, and that actually gave me a better number. And since it's like a journal, that was just I think miscount, because I had left counting like 5 or 6 somewhere in between. And so this is 3072. The 3064 had actually miscounted 8 days somewhere in between. And it was not in one. Sorry, what?
The one where you missed a few numbers, the word that was presented in your art said sleep. So it just felt very fitting.
Oh, yeah, this was the day of printing it. So we have these very fancy printers at ITP, and I head the design lab as part of my residency. And the other reason I wanted to do this at ITP was, if I were to do this printout outside, it would cost me like 5 to 6 grand dollars. And because I was heading this, I had the opportunity to do it. The actual print took like 30 minutes, but to set the file right and to actually make it print, it took 8 hours. So it was all night of no sleep and printing it. And every day the caption and the emojis and things have a story. And my closest childhood friend, he's had his WhatsApp status the longest time. It says, "In sleep, no compromise." So it's just, it was a big caption. And yeah, so in this project, I wanted to use this project as a base to talk about the other things I did. And you can feel free to stop me at any time. So for my thesis, I did this. I come from a family of textile designers, Kanjivaram saree designers, and in Kanchipuram. And the farther I move away from home, the more I do projects related to it. After I came here, I've done projects, a lot of projects around Tirukural, a lot of projects around weaving and silk and computation, using Kanjivaram silk sarees and different video sculptures. And about having two identities, one here and one in India. And when I do things like this, though, the critic inside always thinks, well, am I just doing something that'll look novel in the US, but it's actually not a great project? And I keep thinking about that. And so my validation with these is usually I go talk to my family in India and see if they like it, like the ones who are working with silk directly. And it's not just a polished version of something normal in India that looks fancy in the US. Anyway, for this project, this was my thesis project at ITP. And the longer spiel was this. I was just looking at my presentation. I keep thinking a lot about what we leave behind and what we are building off of. And that's something that's common across a lot of things. Like our parents want us to be better than them, and we want our kids to be better than us. And that's the cycle. That's how evolution goes. And it's all just drama. So when I came to the US, I saw Van Gogh's Starry Night for the first time, and I realized growing up, I had only seen it on screens, and seeing it in person really made me realize why it was so popular and why it was special. Because you're standing relative to the painting where Van Gogh was standing when he painted it, and you experience that sort of connection. And this is common, and this is there when you go to the Egmore Museum and see Raja Ravivarma's paintings or things like that. And then I keep thinking about time and leaving. And then I came across this poem by Walt Whitman called Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, where he talks about going on the ferry in the Brooklyn Hudson River. And he says, all the people who come before me on this ferry and all the people who come after me on this ferry, all of them see these pigeons, see the sky, see this water, and they all share this with me, but the waves are never the same. And something to that. And this was one of the first pieces I did in my everyday project. And this sort of, I think as I'm growing older, I can see connections to all my projects that I've done before and all the smaller things that I've done. At NID, when I was doing interaction design, everything seemed haphazard. Like none of the projects seemed to connect to each other. But when applying to ITP, I had to look at my portfolio again and write a statement, and that really helped see the connection between all of them. I was thinking about leaving ITP and what the people there make, and they talk about family, and I talk about my granddad was a silk saree designer, my grandmom, and that's me. And usually, a baby picture in a presentation is a surefire way to wake the audience up, and at least the presentation is boring. And then I talk about my granddad, and I talk about my grandmom, and I talk about the saree, and I explain what the saree is and the process behind making a Kanjivaram silk saree. These are sketches by my granddad, and then they're plotted onto graphs, which are now digital, and then they are printed onto punch cards called Jacquard cards. The reason I chose to do this project at ITP was also because I had grown up with these cards around me. I would just play with them and growing up. But then coming here, I realized that there are ties to computation, and punch cards being one of the first forms of computing, and ITP being the right place to talk about technology and evolution and also what we are leaving behind. And then the cards are at this part in the loom, and they change one position whenever the foot pedal is pressed. And I think a lot about analog versus digital. Again, in the analog graph process, the designs were better than in digital. And this is one of the reasons was because in analog, even if you put a dot on the graph on the left top, you're still aware of the rest of the graph. But in digital, we just zoom in and we focus on a smaller part and we start doing things there. And when we zoom out, the whole is losing something unless we're intentional about it. So I tried to put all these into questions, and the question was, what are the traces people leave across time? And this is kind of the question that I've, without realizing, pursued in all my other projects. And the feeling I was trying to convey was we are all connected to everyone. So I started doing experiments. I put a sensor on so this part is called the floor. The whole fourth floor of this building is ITP, and it's called the floor. So I put a sensor on the ceiling of the floor, and it was recording noise and sound. And it was right under a ping pong table. It was right above a ping pong table, so it would have peaks continuously. And whenever I would walk by, I would jump and clap twice. And in the data, I could see when I entered, when others entered, and I could see how people played and things like that. And then I made this piece for me and my mom, because both of us never understood when the other person was awake, and I was here and she was there, and we didn't know when to call each other, and we didn't want to disturb sleep. So I made two small IoT control devices, MQTT control devices, where one is with me, and when I wake up, I press the button on my side and it opens. Sorry, this is supposed to be me. So when I wake up, I press the button on my side and it opens its eyes on my mom's side, and she knows I'm awake. And when she wakes up, she presses the button on her side and she wakes up on my side, and I know she's awake. And then this was a project that I had concepted when I was in NID, like 2017, 2018, for Art in Transit, Bangalore. And it never happened. And I came here, and one of the things that I had in the back of my mind was I need to finish this project at least. And I made it for a show. And it's a staring contest where there's someone's face on a display, and you go in and you have a staring contest with them. You look into their eyes, and the intention was to connect with them, but that didn't really happen once I made it a game. You look into their eyes, and when you blink, your face goes on the display, and you leave a part of yourself to the next person. And you're taking something that someone else has left behind, interacting with it, and you're leaving a part of yourself to the future. That was the idea. And this is about my everydays and how working on the thesis project made me also do renders related to that. And anyway, so the thesis started like this, and this was the I usually try to make a storyboard in just Cinema 40 quickly because I'm used to it now and it's part of my process. So in a real loom, the weaver sits, there's a loom, and the jacquard cards are on the top. And I want to do something similar. So this is the structure. As a participant, you walk in. Through the punch cards, you see a display. And on the display, through each hole, you see all the people who have come to this experience before you. And then there's a loom under, and you weave on this loom. And when you leave a line weaved on this loom, you leave a physical trace of yourself. And that trace triggers a camera on the side of this and adds your face to this hole too. And then when you walk away, it rotates once. And then prototyping. First version, second version, final version was with accessibility, with accessibility constraints and thinking about it. And this was a test image, but the idea was like this. So as people come in, it gets triggered and it captures your face. And so when you look through the holes of the jacquard, you see one face every time. And I think, yeah, this is just, okay. And in my thesis presentation, this is actually my final thesis presentation. In that, I added this, I think, 1 minute video of my 10 minutes. And I said, now all of us are going to watch this video because we need some slowness in our life. And it's okay if I don't talk and stand up. And this is the full pipeline of our full journey. So there's a small photo cell here, a light sensor that has this. When you take it, it detects the state, and you can weave however you want. The idea of this was people expected instructions, but I wanted to see what people would do if they just prompted to weave. And different people did different patterns. And once they weave and put it back in, it rotates once. And the thing is, just like in real life, we might remember 3 or 4 generations before us, and it all depends. We don't really have control over who we know, we don't know. And each of the card is actually different. If you see the patterns here, so based on the card, you might see some faces, you might not see some faces. That's also the randomness of chance. And I like making a lot of time lapses. Especially in a project like this, it immediately shows progress. Again, like with ancestral legacy and all those things, even if one person makes a different kind of weave, or like there was one person, if you'd see this line, they didn't actually weave through everything. They just went in the start and put it in the end. That still counts as a weave. But the person that came after that, over like 5 or 6 people, it again went back to a normal traditional weave pattern. So even if there's a mistake done in history, the others who are coming in the future are able to correct it. And then so just thanking my family for waking me up every day. But now my mom woke me up for this. and then thanking everyone. Yeah, I can keep going, but if you want me to stop,
I think your time is up. Well, as I couldn't stop you, Suraj. Like this is this is brilliant. Like you've showed us like how you can keep that every day as a personal diary, like, and you know exactly what happened that day, and that project where you have been like you put all your, I think, ancestral knowledge as well to like display, and it's brilliant. Yeah, I think everyone feels that way as well. Um, we are very grateful for you to wake up like this and like tell us all.
No, I'm happy to be,
Yeah,
because every time I keep missing it, and this time I just want to.
no,
Yeah, thank you so much for. giving me
It's an
time.
honor. It's an honor. I mean,
Thanks, Auntie, for waking you also.
yeah.
A
Yeah.
little.
Great. Any questions by anyone to Suraj? You can have like 5 minutes of question.
So how exactly did you put like faces into the cards, into those, into the jacket cards? Like the faces were like really small, right? So did you have like
Uh-huh.
screens behind the cards, or how were they displayed?
Um, there was a display. I can you still see my screen? No, right?
No.
I think like there was an adjustment as well. I think
Yeah,
this thing.
I wrote a sketch.
Feedback.
So the motors run on Arduino, and
Screen behind. Got it.
Yeah, and I think you had a pivot like a slider to adjust, right? I'm not sure.
sorry, what?
Did you have a slider to adjust to align the faces to each hole?
No, I wrote a sketch on P5 on P5 and then put it on Glitch, and I had to size them based on the holes. So I measured the size of the hole and the distance between each, and made that the size of the square of the image.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's all an Arduino uh, running the sensor and talking serially to the camera.
Nice. I have a question like about this more this is about your everyday. It's now
Mm-hmm.
you said 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious like how are you going how long are you going to do it?
I don't know. I don't have an end date in mind. I didn't start it with the idea of doing it every day. Uh, I think most of us will understand. Like I went to NID and I realized at some point whatever got me into NID, I stopped doing that once I was inside. And I was doing a lot of graphic design before NID, and I just stopped doing it. And I met Mamta. I met people there, faculty there, and I was like, okay, I need to get back to things I like doing. And I think I did it for like 15 days first, and even that wasn't intentional, and people liked it, and I paused and started again. And now that I did this printout, I was seeing the printout and remembering everything, and it's all because of I've always had supportive people around me. Like when I was doing it, the intention wasn't to do it every day, but if I don't do it, and let's say we are going to dinner, my friends will be like, "Have you done your render today? We can wait. You should just do it." And that's how it sort of snowballed into
Oh damn.
becoming an everyday thing.
So you'd not miss a day. Like what happens if you miss a day?
I haven't missed a day so far. Like
You haven't missed
yesterday
a day.
was
That's crazy.
no,
No, I
like
think
this is.
like as much as I have tried doing an everyday thing, if I
Mhm.
miss one day, then like I will feel discouraged and like I wouldn't continue or something like that. Like so
Mm,
it's really something to admire to see like you've done it for 8 years.
thank you. Yeah, I think it's there's a lot. Like I teach a class called 100 Days of Making at ITP, and the whole class is about this. All the students choose one topic, and they have to do 100 days of that and post it on Instagram for 100 days. And the whole class is about different theories like perfectionism and procrastination, and why you need to be okay with putting out bad stuff too. Like this was just crap. I did it like 1 minute before midnight because I had to get something out before midnight because I was busy the whole day with some other work, and I was installing an AC, and I was like, okay, I know that if I have at least 2 minutes, I can do something and put it out, even if it sucks. I'll beat myself up over it, but I'll still put it out. And I think that's really helped me. So you can just look at my feed and you'll know some days like this took a lot of work, and this you can compare the two and you're like,
Great. If
thank you.
anyone else have any questions online,
Hi, I just wanted to ask because so much of your work is archival in nature. Do you start off thinking that this is what I want to build, or do you just like with the phone calls and notes and things that you were making, do you just chance upon like how does inspiration strike?
Um, for projects, I think I have two notebooks. I don't know if you know, there's a person called Arnab who also sometimes participates, and he's an ITP senior. And I used to have one notebook, and I have a sketchbook with me all the time. But then I started using a smaller pocket-sized notebook just for ideas, and it's actually like not magical. You if you get anything, you just put a small sketch on the left side of a spread, and then whenever you're free, you can fill out the idea. But whatever you get, you just note it down. And like I have like idea notes that I've compiled over the last I don't know 5 6 years on app notes, and I can look at them if I don't have anything. But I think maybe going to school again was helpful because you're always surrounded by people and you're in that environment. And now you understand your own process of coming up with things. Like the everyday project has really helped me identify inspiration. Like if I talk about that, I usually say, "Oh, I look at this lamp and I look at this aluminium material, and today my render is going to be something combining those two." So I sort of collect things over the course of the day, and at the end of the day, based on 5 minutes or half an hour that I have, I'll pick things and make something with them.
Man,
Thank you.
nice. Thank you, Suraj. Thank you for sharing this wonderful journey with us.
I'm Niraj. I'm a product designer, but I also do a lot of creative coding. It's mostly experiments, but I also do calligraphy, like drawing letters, right? And I'm a computer science engineer and a designer. Turned into a designer, but two interesting things happened when I was in engineering. I started writing. I was interested in writing codes. I was surrounded by writing codes, right? And I was also interested in writing words beautifully. Like I used to write my DSN notes like in like absolutely brilliant handwriting and like.
You should
Yeah.
I think he's got something also.
Yeah. Later on, and I got interested. And then when I went into design college, I got interested into calligraphy, and that's when I learned about calligraphy, how it sort of came in, and started wondering what made it popular, right? How did it generate so many different styles and different areas, right? It turns out it was due to these people, scribes. So essentially, they looked like this in the medieval era, maybe. And so before the printing press, I think these people were responsible for copying each uh, religious scriptures, like big book, by hand, one by one. And I'm sure it must not have been a good experience. But anyways, I was experimenting with calligraphy as well. I was trying different tools, and then I realized how different tools are giving me different results. So that's why I realized, uh, why did this different variants of. I started making my own tools. I was picking up ordinary things like branches or maybe popsicle sticks, and that's the thing that stops your furniture from moving. Maybe I don't know what to call that. I got really interested in drawing letters. Did a 36 days of type uh, compilation. But what I realized, I was also interested in writing code, right? And while I was in design college, I sort of then thought, where does this fit into graphic generation? Because I was training as a graphic designer, and a lot of graphics and a lot of tools that I was using were, I felt, were more of a interface between, we're hiding behind the interface like Adobe tools and things like that. And at the end, it was generating graphics. So I started learning code. I started learning P5.js, got really into it, and then sort of then moved on into just getting the basics right, like just the transformation operators like translate, rotate, and what scale can do. And this was really interesting because in design college, a lot of my colleagues were like very uh, skeptical about mathematics, and they used to run away when I used to, yeah, intimidating for, yeah. And I happen to find math, it's really interesting because it's in a way I feel, uh, in a way mapping the real world in some equations and forms, right? And really got, yeah, adding motions to these sketches. Another thing, interactivity was really interesting to me. uh, I could, like, in real time see how I could control the graphics itself, right? That couldn't have been possible in, let's say, Adobe tools. At the end of the day, you have to render it, and then it becomes a static, video file. But this was really interesting for me. Then the next step was to sort of add a text layer on top of it so that it kind of resembles a poster or a graphic collateral in that sense, right? I really got interested into loops, making loops. It's highly addictive. And yeah, this is another version of it. I think the frame rates is dropping, I don't know. But yeah, this is again a very simple sketch, uh, just rotating it around the central axis. But I was also doing this, matlab, in the sense, uh, I really wanted something that was physical, that was, made by hand, or nuanced, or it's not as perfect as a graphic, image would. So this is where the what I like to call it, the modern scribe. It looks like this, something like it's a body parts of a pen plotter, similar to a 3D printer that we have here at Paper Can Labs. Uh, the pen plotter works in a more or less in a two-dimensional world. It roughly understands three things to do: when to take the sort of lift up the pen from the surface, move around, and when to put the pen down, right? All I had to do was sort of write the instructions of when and where to go. The early experiments I was doing, a lot of it was experimenting with lines. Just these are called Moire patterns. So it's formed by intersections of different lines. So some of that. And what I also realized was the tool that I was putting into the pen plotter would also sort of then define how the outcome would be. And that was kind of very interesting for me. The same design can look so much different, right? Uh, yeah, then I started getting into complex stuff, and very soon I realized that I had to optimize my path because it was taking hours and hours to sort of write this. Then I got into making moving images, and like I said, I'm really into loops. So I had to draw like 100 frames of it, manually crop them. Yeah, not an easy process, but yeah, a lot of fun though. These are some of the recent ones. Uh, the next step eventually was for me then, how somebody asked me, how is this different from any other printer, right? You can just print these on a desktop printer. But then I realized what I could do was then jump on top of them and sort of then add my own. So these, the one on the left, I think, yeah, that's a simple sketch, but then with a watercolor brush, you could sort of move around with the ink, play around with the ink. I could lift ink from the surface, make interesting shapes there. Sorry, middle one is just a random. So it actually was printed at 3 layers, like, because each color layer I had to change the pen, and so it's a random rectangle. So I had to come up with a fill algorithm, how to fill these rectangles. Then I got into making these tools that could make so these patterns for me, or sort of these interesting shapes for me, then which I could then give it to my plotter, and that would sort of render it in that sense. So I think, yeah, that's it from the journey has been so far interesting, a lot of fun. And what really interested me was, uh, combining these two very different concepts of hard logical rules of code, and then combining it with something which is made with hand can give you really interesting and beautiful results. Yeah.
Nice. I actually miss Mathura now because she was thinking of getting a plotter here. And last time I think we had someone come in for who had a plotter, and he had mounted a light
And then
and did light painting on it. Pretty cool. Can you show us what you got? Like,
yeah,
you got
I have a
some-
few prints here, but yeah, for the people who are online, I'm so sorry.
We'll try to show them. And just have to see how the.
Yeah, and yeah, I think in person they look really interesting because each paper and each pen will give out a very different texture in that sense.
Can someone?
We are showing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, this is the latest one.
These are very
Amazing.
This one.
So this is nothing automatically because of how close the lines are.
Yeah. So these imagined, patterns I could even anticipate before coding. Yeah, pink and
I just took purple from.
yeah.
Yeah, these would be things you didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
Really.
This one.
Thanks,
This like things like these would take a lot of time to print. So earlier I started with drawing concentric circles, but I realized it was taking a lot of time, so I wrote a custom not a custom, but I started making it as a spiral so that it doesn't waste time lifting the pen up and down.
So do you make these on paper sheets as well?
The maximum the printer can print is slightly shorter than an A3 print.
Okay. So custom like plotting made.
So I got it's not the Axi Draw. I think that's the most popular one. But in India, there's some guy in Kerala, I think, who makes these 3D printed parts, and that you can just assemble at home. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Pretty cool. Yes,
Have you thought of trying other thing except sketch pen? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think the next a few things that I want to try is with paints, and another thing that I'm also interested is in ceramics. Maybe I could etch on ceramic plates. So these are I think that's something that's very exciting for me, is because the tool that I put into that pen plotter would then kind of give me very different results. So that's something that I'm still exploring.
Do you sell any of these?
No, not yet. I'm just building up my collection, but I don't know if people are interested in it.
Suraj wants to
Yeah.
Suraj wants
I asked because I know genetics.
Can you show some of your calligraphy?
Calligraphy, yeah. Let me see if I can open up my Instagram.
Oh, I saw the Instagram. I meant like having the original lettering and then converting it into SVG and making it again with the plotter and putting them next
Yeah.
to each other.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I was actually thinking of making a custom font. Like most of the fonts are outline based, but for pen plotter you would need a path, right? And so I was thinking of making a custom font for that as well. Maybe mimic my handwriting.
It's pretty.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's that very famous creative coding person, that lady Amy or something. She has been trying that with her own like very regular thing,
Amy
right?
Goodchild. Yeah.
Amy. She has, she I think started that something like that, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm actually very interested to see more of your animations. That was really something else. You had this very like
Mhm.
Kelly Anderson kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's very cool.
Just that it takes a lot of time to
Yeah, of course.
crop them.
Labor of love.
I I wonder if you can put 4 dots in the corner of the screen
Yeah,
with
I
your
tried
with the
doing that.
same
Yeah,
plotter
yeah, I did try
and run
doing
a script to crop
that.
the dots or something.
Yeah, I didn't write
Might
a.
save time.
Yeah, I did that. So I drew the points, the corners as a part of the SVG path, and then I got the whole image into Figma and sort of then moved the image the equal size of the width of the frame.
Hmm. Maybe you can write a Photoshop action or something just to open the image, crop it from the center to this size, and something like that. This.
Yeah.
So many ideas. Yeah,
Someone's brain is now suddenly running after saying that he was asleep.
I had my chai.
yeah. You should actually put this
Yeah.
up if you're interested in.
Yeah, I am interested, but I'm not sure how. What the best way to send these.
Nice. Any other questions? Anyone online? You did not
I
show
was,
us.
I was, I believe you did some project with Abhimanyu and, but
Dipanshu.
I wanted to know more about that. I thought maybe you'll talk about it, but I don't know if this is the right place or the time.
If we have time, I think I can.
We have
Yeah.
time. 10 minutes.
Okay. Let me just.
Actually, yeah, we have time.
Yeah. So with Abhimanyu and Dipanshu, I'll just show you the tool maybe. So we made a custom graphic asset creating tool for them. I wouldn't get into the details of what the brief was, but the idea and Dipanshu and Abhimanyu are also amazing architects, and they also like systems thinking. They're very much into that, and that's something even I am interested in. Even in my graphic design practice, I've realized I gravitate a lot towards building these systems that can generate very interesting patterns or behaviors. So the idea was you have a graphic sort of a canvas to work on, and there are a few things that you can sort of manipulate or yeah, and it was a drawing tool essentially, and the idea was to keep it modular and to make it tile against each other, right? So I could make another bunch of tiles, and like I said, I was really into loops, so that kind of helped in then sort of forming these interesting patterns. But
Create the same pattern in each of the tiles, or can you get like each tile to have
yeah, so first I just tried this out and tried this idea out, and what I could see was if I could just flip few of them horizontally, I could get a very different uh, pattern or sort of motion. Flip them vertically maybe.
Oh. This is very similar to the grid structure that you spoke
Yeah, this one I could then add in some colors, background colors. These were some brand colors from there, from the identity that we picked up. Yeah, and like you said, this was one of the module. Then the idea was to then explore different modules that could work. So we came up with a lot of different motions that could, on a bigger scale, work very. I could just flip this, it would just lead to this.
I can see the system.
Yeah, and then just building upon that, trying different shapes that could easily tile with each other. I also had a record button so that I can export.
By the way, the grid.
Yeah.
So, like right now, you made it into a 4x4.
Yeah.
It can be smaller as well. Like.
Yeah. So again, as this was a commercial project, so I had to, at the end of the day, render out images that could go onto their social media campaigns and stuff like that. So the tool had the function to export PNG images or sort of record the whole loop and then export it as MP4 or a PNG sequence in that case. And I could, like you said, I could convert, I mean, change the, I could add more rows or more columns. I could make a.
I mean that. So you see that poster that, like, some of them are tiny and some of them are large.
Yeah. So again, the drawing tool itself is governed by mouse. So it's I can make it as small as possible.
Yeah.
That was the basis of the grid. It functions. Yeah. So I don't have the actual presentation for the V-scope. That was the project name. Maybe I think
another time.
Next, yeah.
This is also really cool.
Is this out there somewhere? Like, so people can try it out?
No, exactly. So this was then moved into their repository so that it was actually handed over to the client so they could generate their own assets for the.
So
for
it's
the campaign.
commercial.
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys keep, anyways,
I
any other
have
question?
I have one question. So I'm just wondering, like, did you have a design background, education, and what was your journey into code like? How did you start?
Yeah, so I started, I went to engineering. So I studied computer science there. That's when I was introduced to coding. But later on, I did go to design school and studied graphic design. And then there I realized that the graphics that were generated eventually were coming from some algorithm that was creating those shapes, right? I found a lot of people who were working on similar spaces, like programmatically drawing graphics, and that's where I sort of combine these two areas, focus areas.
Thank you. There is a lot of stuff in the chat, like a lot. So you should look at it, Niraj, later.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they're all love your All right. Then we can move on to our last speaker.
So yeah, before I begin, a little bit of like introduction. Like every time you're calling out Adobe for doing like static stuff, I actually work with Adobe as a product designer, and I was like, yeah, where do I hide? But yeah, that's kind of
Hide about the license cost, Harshit, not about the static.
With tech, different kinds of things, particularly like a lot of it over the last 9-10 years has been with machine learning models, etc. And there's one like a project I wanted to share with the group today, which is called Untool. It's no more live, unfortunately, and I'll continue talking about why. But we kind of ran this for a few months last year. There's 3 of us that uh, came together to kind of try and build this, and it was born out of this kind of like, especially from early last year, there's all this like buzz around generative AI, right? And there's this whole like thinking that it has kind of democratized creation of images, and now everyone can create whatever they want. And there's a lot of obviously like media hype, and it was, yeah, the idea was kind of just going viral, right? Since like having been working in the space of machine learning and art for some time, I was kind of curious that, okay, like if it is so democratized, like it started off with like my parents wanting to also make images, right? And everyone's parents are now pretty much generally active on WhatsApp, and there's like all these kinds of images that are very much part of everyone's WhatsApp family groups, etc. Right? And yeah, I mean, I was also like obviously subjected to all this, and I started thinking that these are generally like forwards that somehow arrive. Like it's quite magical, but they're there. Like no one knows who created them, what the source of them was or is, but they're there in everyone's WhatsApp. And to the extent that there have been a lot of these articles like Indians clog up the internet in arms race of daily greetings. And this has actually happened. Like WhatsApp servers have been down like multiple times because of how many like good morning messages are shared. And it's like once I started digging into it, it was like really funny to discover the thing that's actually going on. But I mean, yeah, they're part of our lives and we can't help it. So I started thinking, but yeah, like my parents don't make these images, right? And with generative AI, like if it's democratized creativity and making of images, they should be able to make this somehow, right? So then with a couple of friends, we started making this thing called Untool, which is a WhatsApp like system where you can type in a message in WhatsApp and you get like an image back, right? And potentially make like slightly more good looking good morning messages. I mean, not
better than the previous
yeah.
one.
So these are made with Untool, but like not to comment on the aesthetics, there is obviously like a room for all kinds of like imagery. But what we were getting at was also like, this is so my dad runs this like green initiative in the apartment, right, in the building that they live in Bombay. And he on 15th August was doing this like tree plantation drive, and he wanted to make an image to invite everyone to say that, okay, uh, we're going to do this like tree plantation thing or something. And he wanted to combine like greenery with independence somehow. So he could make this image directly on WhatsApp now, right? So there was some level of like that democratization that was being promised. And instead of like having to go, let's say, on some Mid-Journey or whatever and try their hand at that, like within the tool that they use for forwarding these images, there was a potential of doing something like this. And it was nice. And like dads do like this very like strongly worded message, like this I propose to send as message on Independence Day. It's okay, like you don't have to be so formal on WhatsApp, but whatever. And then like I shared it with my family members first, and my Mosiji could make like this greeting for her grandson. He loves cars and he's turning 4 or 5, I think. And so making like this cake with car imagery. So kind of like at least making something personal and then being able to write that message at the bottom. And so the interface or the UX of it kind of looked like this, like you sent a message and you got the image back with like these like generated text messages, but you could like change the heading and the bottom text or regenerate the image if you wanted. And we picked up their WhatsApp name and added that to like the message automatically, but they could change it by changing the bottom text, right? And you had like these different kinds of creations that could be done. And then we earlier this year kind of tried a different version. WhatsApp came up with this sort of scrolling carousel thing, horizontal scroll, so we could give more options, etc. But they then kind of pulled that out. So we were obviously dependent on like this giant WhatsApp machine to, if they have introduced some new like UX patterns, we could adapt to that. Otherwise, we kind of stick to what they give. But anyway, when it all really started to get interesting was this for me. Like, so, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's a very interesting pattern. Like my mom sends these greetings out every day, like, and obviously like forward it, right? And so then I told my mom, okay, now you can create your own thing and maybe have slightly personalized messages. And she created this first thing. So Nutan is my mom's name. And she wrote this thing, but she was horrified with the image that was generated. And I actually was quite surprised. Like I was just using off the shelf like stability AI models and whatnot. And I was like, this is quite reasonably good, right? Like, but she was like, you have to stop doing all this. I don't know what you're up to. Like all this is not like right. And I was like, the thing was like, this doesn't represent like the actual imagery that she has in mind of this deity, right? Or of this uh, uh, god. And it was like she was like she caught on to things like the leg is a bit odd, fingers are a bit odd, and all of that. And I was like, yeah, but this is like AI, and like, and she's like, are you kidding me? Like, what? I don't care if this is AI or not, right? Like, this you can't do this. Like, even for like this imagery of the center image of Ram, like, she's like, this is really disrespectful. And I was like, okay, I get your point. So then we kind of, what we did as a tweak in the backend is collected like a bunch of images that are sort of more realistic representations of gods, and based on the prompt we received, like kind of classified if that prompt belonged to a certain religious figure, and would just serve up images of that rather than generating with AI. But this particular experience really made me start thinking more. Like I obviously knew about like cultural biases and whatnot in generative AI, but like this was very close to home, literally, to kind of think more deeply about it. Um, and now, I think earlier this year, like a couple of months back, Meta probably launched their own like AI within WhatsApp, right? So I was playing around with it to see if it can do what my mom would want it to do in a certain way. Like, can it generate this image? But currently it says that, okay, I can't generate that image. I can help you with something else. And if I say just like a message, then it gives me a message which has a religious inclination, but not an image. And if I just remove the God word, then it gives me this very like, obviously like non-Indian Western kind of generic image, right? And so there is obviously that gap between what that whole promise of democratizing with AI was and what was expected for my parents in terms of that democratization. But yeah, so I mean, we've kind of stopped like the tool now. It's not no more on WhatsApp because this is what the structure basically looked like. We were using these three things: OpenAI, stability, and WhatsApp APIs, running it all through a Google Cloud server. And OpenAI was used for like basically initially checking God or not, and then like kind of generating the text on top and bottom and generating a prompt for stability AI, which would generate the image, and then yeah, using WhatsApp for communication, and the whole cycle just continues. But this was obviously costing us like a good 4 or 5K a month. So and at some point like last year we just sent it out publicly to a bunch of people on WhatsApp groups and all that, and a lot of people started using it, so we had to like start to manage like load costs, etc. on the server, and all of that became like just too much like financially to continue. So for now, this has stopped, and also like Meta has introduced that thing online, but it obviously there is sort of that gap between expectation and output. But it really started making me like kind of think a little bit more about the material aspects of AI, and if constitutes like data sets and algorithms, and each of them have their own like consequences, right? And in a certain way, even if there is that promise of everyone can participate in this Gen AI kind of journey, but it probably is not true. And especially for like my parents, like it doesn't matter for them if it's generated by AI or not, right? Like they need to have the right respectful image of that particular religious figure that they want, and period. Like it doesn't matter if it's 80% there and like 2 saal baad it'll be 100% or whatever. So things like that I think was just interesting as a project, and I thought I'll just share that with the group. That's it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But like, so you had I'd imagine in WhatsApp before WhatsApp.
What?
I'd imagine like
Yeah. So it was
You think
just.
they stole your idea?
I mean, it was quite an obvious thing for WhatsApp to do, but yeah, it was. I think intentionally it was very different from what they have currently, at least.
But yeah, did you any like, I don't think you have an answer for this. Anyhow know where those ignoring messages come from?
It's very interesting. So I have a friend who works with Canva, and he kind of confirmed that every morning India time that they receive a spike in like download of bad looking templates and they trace that back to like good morning messages. So someone like there are people who are at it, like but I don't know the entire story for sure. But yeah.
Good. Any questions? Or we can start with Tanis, and I think we are like cutting close.
Yeah.
So
So I have two things we can try out. One is like a tool I built that we can play around with directly. The other one requires us all to
Hold on, can't hear Tanvi at all.
sorry, it's very
I was saying, so one thing would require all of us to write some code, and the other is just a tool that anyone can play with. So which one would you folks prefer based on how many people are comfortable coding, versus how many just want to play with something?
tool. Hands up. Hands up or react for the tool, guys.
So yeah, I'd made this as a way to play around with L systems. So L systems are like, think of it as a way to make fractals in some sense, but not exactly that. I'm just trying to simplify it. And what you do here is you start off by defining an alphabet or a language per se, which usually has a couple of letters. And you're going to use this language to draw something on the screen. So the language that we've defined, F means forward, means just move straight. All right. So imagine a person standing at the bottom center of your canvas. So this is where facing upwards. This is where you're going to start out. So if you see here, my axiom is FF. My axiom means my starting thing. So like say the starting letter. Usually for a sentence, it's the word the, and then you add stuff with it, right? So FF. So that's what's drawn here first, which is F and F. So it's just moving forward, right? Now I'm going to define some rules. So what happens in a fractal? Something over and over and over again, right? So an L system is something like that. You can have multiple iterations of the same thing over and over again, and it will get larger and more complex as you add more iterations to it. So say my axiom was something a little more complicated, or let's start off with the most basic. It's FF, and my rule says F is equal to F. Very simple. Like no matter how much I iterate, I'm going to keep getting the same thing. Does that make sense? Because I'm not adding anything to it. Now I'm going to add a couple more things that I can do. Plus and minus. Plus means I turn to the right, and minus means I turn to the left. You can change the angle of turn. So here I've done 60. You can make it 30, 20, 25, whatever you want it to be. length, I'm saying 300 is just like the size of one F, right? Or like the starting, you can play around with these numbers. Thickness is just the thickness of the line that you're drawing. So F means straight, go straight, whichever direction you're facing in. Plus means turn to the right, minus means turn to the left. So say my axiom was just this, but my rule was F plus F, right? And let me see what happens. Okay. But is this making sense to you? So it went F plus F. Yeah. And so when I went to the second iteration, this F became F plus F. This F also became F plus F. So I got F plus F, F plus F, right? That was the final sentence, you can call it. So this is what I got. Now, so I think F and plus and minus are clear. We also have brackets. Now, what brackets will do is kind of store your current location, because your F is going to take your direction as well, right? What if you want to come back to a previous direction? So if I'm doing F and then I want to draw a branch, come back here and then do something else. How do I do that? So let's look at a very basic thing. All right, this is a little more complicated. Why did I not do anything easy? Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is my initial starting, right? My axiom is just F, saying, hey, draw this. What is my F? My F is you go forward, you're still facing up. I'm storing this location, and then I'm doing minus F, and then I'm popping out. So I'm coming back here, the close bracket. Then I do an F again. I store that location. I do a plus F, come back here, and then F again, right? And yeah, brackets are essentially push and pop. So if I keep iterating, I get something like this. Yeah. So the last four here, I've kind of written already. So you can play around with whichever you like, however you like. This tool will also let you add in another variable X, and X you can make as, more complicated versions of F. So for example, if you wanted to make this branch a little more complicated, right? You could define that as X and just put that X here instead of making it like a really, really long thing. So you can just add more complexity using that second variable. But yeah, this is the tool. I put the thing in chat. This is the link. So yeah, feel free to try it out. These colors will let you change the color that it moves into. So the starting color to the final color, kind of like a gradient in some sense. And this is just to change your background color. Yeah, these four will help you with this. These are a little more complex. So I won't go into too much detail. But yeah, feel free to play around with it. Keep like increasing iterations to see what you get. And you can kind of see what the rules look like as well. So yeah.
How exactly are the colors? The two colors, right?
Yeah.
Because many of these iterations, they form like a really nice blend.
Yeah, so think of it this way, like as and when I iterate, my same axiom, it started off with X, right? And then it's going to become this, and it's going to become this. It just becomes a very long string. So as I'm like passing through that string to draw, I'm just seeing where it is in part of that string. Like, is it in the first half, second half, and then kind of taking that gradient from those to that, right? So P5 has a function that lets you take a color in between two colors.
Okay.
So say 0 to 1, what range are you at? So it's just the fraction of where you're at in that whole sentence per se. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay, let's do this as
I think we have 3-4 laptops here, so we can probably share within PCL.
Yeah,
if you have any doubts, let me know. Yeah.
pretty cool. This tool is very exciting. I hope like people at home can also open it. Everyone can open it, right?
Yeah, put the link in chat.
All right. It's there. I will again.
Yeah, just share it again. I will copy.
We'll take our. Hey, no, this is not the one. This is not the one. Sorry, my bad.
Copy.
Okay, so let's take 15 minutes and like we can come back and see what we have done. Like we can show around what kind of trees we have coded.
Yeah. think start by playing around first. Do F plus minus this that and you can see.
Tanvi will be here.
Yeah.
Do you want to share? Okay, cool. Do you have? You have it.
I believe.
Okay. Cool.
This is so much simpler. Like this is a very good explanation. You saw last time, no? I showed the